Welcome to the Baseball Insiders. I am Adam Weinrib, joined as always by Fansided's MLB insider Robert Murray. David Bell made it 156 games of the MLB regular season as the Reds manager. Unfortunately, seasons are 162 games long, and also he was probably hoping to stick around until next year. We're obviously going to talk about that, what's next for the Reds, and all that went down. Plus, the Kansas City Royals and Baltimore Orioles, did they get exposed this weekend, or was that just the Tigers? Do they just do that to everyone? Do the Orioles have a reason to be worried? What are we feeling heading into the playoffs? Plus, the drama in Cincinnati, favorite upcoming series of the week, some insights on San Francisco and the New York Mets, and Lil Acuna, who's been pretty sick so far. And here to talk me through all of it is Fansided's MLB insider Robert Murray. Robert, how are you doing, dude?
I am doing great. A little bit of a different setup for me today. Don't have the 5 TVs in the background, but I do have one TV, so at least we got some sort of television behind me. But it's Victory Monday for the Eagles, which is always good. We got a lot of stuff going on in baseball once again. Playoff races are heating up. A lot of drama going on in baseball. I am extremely ready to break it down because I got a lot of thoughts, a lot of good ones, even some bad ones. None as bad as the Twitter mentions that you had last night, Adam, that I stumbled upon this morning. But good to be here with you as always. How you doing, good sir?
I am doing good. My Twitter mentions, yes, predictably a disaster. My Instagram mentions, always a disaster as well. If anybody wants to contribute to the heaping pile of garbage, you're welcome. Please come on in. The water is fine. We are excited to share some good baseball opinions. But again, if you think they're bad, you can let us know. You can also more specifically let us know in the Discord. Join us in the Baseball Insiders Discord server if you want to help give back to this show. You can join us in either the Rumor Mill tier or the All-Star tier that gives you priority responses in the chat to your questions. You can ask us questions ahead of time. You also get a private Zoom once a month. Robert and I are going to have to get together and figure out when to get that done by the end of September. So stay tuned for that, potentially early next week, and then we'll do one at the end of October too. I don't know. Just throwing stuff out there. I love to throw stuff out there. It's one of my favorite things to do, but we'll touch base on it, figure out a time to get together with everybody. Also, if you like Robert's opinions and baseball content, why wouldn't you? You're here. Subscribe to the Moonshot. That's our weekly baseball email newsletter where the Fansided MLB team, including Robert Murray, not including me, maybe I can get on there at some point, break down all the biggest stories in the big leagues with humor, insight, and behind the scenes info. And if you know me, you know I love humor and baseball. But we're here to talk baseball right now. Thank you for joining us. We got through the stuff. No more ad reads. No more ad reads for David Bell at all. I actually haven't been to a Reds post-game presser. I don't know if they make him do ad reads after games, but he is gone. Fired, dismissed. Interim manager will take over, and you had that last night. What happened here? Just 1 year after an extension through 2026 was signed. And where do the Cincinnati Reds pivot? This is a great, extremely talented young team that many thought would take a step forward in the division this year, if not outright win it. Battle it out with Craig Counsell and the Cubs. We all saw how that turned out. Is Skip Schumacher in play? We know that that's a name that's already been thrown around. Bill Belichick? I mean, what should Reds fans expect here?
I have not heard Bill Belichick connected to the Reds opening quite yet.
Started right here. Yeah, in the mid-70s, he's ready to transition to baseball like Paul DePodesta.
Yeah, I would laugh pretty hard if MLB Deadline News, who is in the show today, by the way, if he aggregated that nugget. So that'd be pretty fun. But anyways, with the Reds opening here, it was not necessarily the most surprising move. I guess maybe it caught some people off guard considering that the Reds extended David Bell about like a year ago. Yeah. But there's been kind of some rumblings behind the scenes that there could end up being some sort of move here, especially considering their disappointing season. They've invested a lot into this roster, both in terms of getting these prospects, but also signing some players in free agency or even adding them over trade. And it did not work out. And if you had talked to people behind the scenes who were in the know, like you even heard it today from Nick Kroll, like there was philosophical differences there. And just it sounds a lot like what happened with Mike Schilt in St. Louis. You heard the term philosophical differences thrown around there, and it's the same thing that happened here. Some of the things that they were pointing to were the poor defense, poor base running, just to name a few different things. But that job should be, I think they're going to be able to attract some pretty decent candidates. And yes, like Skip Schumacher is going to probably be on that list. He's going to be on every list for any managerial opening this year because he's the top candidate. I think David Ross is a good name thrown around by Andrew Lee. I think he can make some sense. I think a guy like a veteran manager who is maybe more of a stable voice in that locker room could be a really good thing. I'm not saying that David Bell wasn't a stable voice, but you saw how often he got ejected. I mean, that is, you might want to have someone who's a little bit more mild mannered and less tempered. So I think that's going to be something they look for, but they should be able to attract a pretty good candidate, unlike a team like the White Sox or the Marlins, who I think could, especially the White Sox, I think they could really struggle adding some of the top candidates out there, considering how bad they are right now.
I'm just going to go ahead and say that everyone is recirculating for good reason the April 24th report that Terry Francona would be interested in returning to managing a year and a half from that date. If he wants to turn that into a year instead, he would be a pretty good veteran voice to lead the Cincinnati Reds. He once played for the Cincinnati Reds. He once managed successfully in Ohio. I'm just not connecting effectively. And if not him, then Belichick is very available because he's on the Manning cast every week now. And I would call that overkill.
Oh yeah, it is a bit overkill. I'll even admit that. And I love Bill Belichick.
I think I do too, but I mean,
yeah. But I also want to add another name to this managerial carousel that has not gotten any real buzz, I don't think, publicly yet. But Buck Britton, he is the AAA manager of the Baltimore Orioles. I had somebody today tell me that he thought that he'd be a really good manager in the majors. He's got 450 career managerial wins. He is, to my knowledge, he has not interviewed for any of these previous openings. But I think he could end up garnering some interest now or even like at some point in the near future, because one thing that this person told me is that he's very popular with both young and old players. So I think he could be a name to keep an eye on, like maybe an under the radar kind of guy.
And that is Zach Britton's brother, right?
No, it's a good shot. Buck Showalter would put him in the game, but not Zach.
I actually wasn't kidding. I thought Buck was really, Zach Britton's brother, Buck Britton.
Wait, you're kidding me? Really?
No, I am not joking.
I just learned something on the Baseball Insider just now. That is the kind of insight that you can only get from Adam Weinrib. Because I mean, yeah, I guess it makes sense.
That's also the kind of thing that happens on this show or on any other show. I say so much ridiculous shit that I actually say something that is accurate, and everyone's like, "Okay, good bit. That's a good joke." But that one was true. They are both.
That is true. Yeah. And also, I just want to address a couple different things in the comments here. Mm-hmm. Sports Glory, still nothing new to report on Farhan, so I'm not going to give you. I don't have any new updates for you there.
Yeah,
Andrew, we will be talking about the Padres today, so you can stay tuned for that.
I believe we are.
So those are the two things that I wanted to address. And then Canyon, Ben Cherington is on the record in saying that Shelton is very likely to stay. So I would expect that to remain the case, and I would expect Cherington to stay too. So that's the news I got for you there.
But also Daniel Jones, pretty good football. So appreciate the shout to Daniel Jones. Yes. Let's talk a couple of playoff teams, or maybe potential playoff teams now. And one of these teams is going to be in. One of them, I'm not so sure. We only have 6 games left. There's still some spots up for grabs. And if you went into last week or the weekend thinking there was one AL wildcard spot up for grabs, depending on how the Twins played and Tigers played down the stretch, I got news for you, because the Tigers and Royals are now just 1 game up on Minnesota, 2 up on Seattle, and still 4 up on the Boston Red Sox, who will not necessarily die and have some bad teams on their schedule this week in the Blue Jays and Rays, because they came to life yesterday when they could have been eliminated and were not. So is it likely they make the postseason? No, but there are 2 spots up for grabs now, because the Royals have found themselves all the way at the bottom of the playoff ladder. They are tied with the Tigers in the 5-6 swing spot at the bottom of the bracket, 1 game up on Minnesota. I would have called KC a playoff lock after they took care of business in that home series with those very same Twins and swept them. They didn't just struggle offensively this weekend. They went absolutely dormant against the San Francisco Giants. What happened? What was exposed? And is there enough here to hold on to a playoff spot with a big week ahead of them? And oh, by the way, their final series of the year is in Atlanta.
Yeah, this is not going to be easy at all for the Royals. And like, as you said, I thought once they ended up getting past what was it? The Twins, was it?
They had a big home series with the Twins. They swept them. They went to Pittsburgh and took care of business for the first two. And you're like, all right, they're just going to roll now.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh got them in the finale, and now they cannot win baseball games.
No, they haven't won since like that finale, or since those first two games in Pittsburgh. They're on a 7-game losing streak right now. They got outscored. What was it? 11-1 against the Giants. They got shut out in the last 2 games, and their offense has gone completely dormant. And it is probably the worst time they could have asked for, because one of the biggest things that you look for a team going into the postseason is momentum. Like you saw it last year with the Diamondbacks, even the Rangers last year too. They just had some positive momentum rolling into the postseason, and they carried it throughout the entire playoffs, got them to the World Series. And this year, the juju around the Royals is rough, and they need to right the ship badly here. They do not have an easy final series. As you said, they got Atlanta, so it's not going to be a cakewalk by any means. And the fact that they're only leading by a game, and they have 2 teams trailing right behind them, and they could very easily miss the postseason because of it. This is very scary times for the Royals. It's been a very impressive year for them. They've exceeded my expectations, but if they end up getting this far and then collapse at the end, that would be a really rough way to end the season. It's something that would end up biting them for the remainder of the year here. So, or for the entire offseason, I should say. So we'll see. But if it stays this way, they could be looking at either missing the postseason or having a really short playoff stint there, which is not ideal.
No, and I don't think it should change the calculus on Bobby Witt Jr. versus Judge for MVP, but I do think it was a trendier pick when it looked like the Royals were going to sail into the playoffs with a head of steam. They've still got 6 days left, but yeah, at Nationals, you need to make a statement in that National series. You got to sweep. The Nationals they got C.J. Abrams up all night gambling, getting demoted to the minor leagues when there isn't even a minor leagues to get demoted to. Like, you got to win those games and then see what you can do in Atlanta.
Yeah, by the way, that C.J. Abrams story was absolutely bananas. Not very often you hear of a story quite like that, and especially how it broke. Cody DeMonico of CHGO, who now works with Carm, so good job by Cody. That's a very big scoop. Remember seeing it the night before, or seeing it. I don't know. Was it I think it was the night before.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the heck is this? And then all of a sudden he's demoted, and yeah, that's and then. Mike Rizzo doesn't deny it at all, and that's a shit show right there. And I give Rizzo and that entire front office, and even like Davey Martinez, I give him credit, because making that decision with your star player cannot be easy. But they sent a message to the rest of that team that they will not tolerate that, and I think it's gonna be a learning experience for Abrams, but it put the rest of the team on notice. That stuff will not be tolerated. By the way, I'm gonna do this now. There's a comment here that I'm not usually a guy who predicts stuff, because I think that's a very dangerous game. But Justin, I'm feeling nice today. He's asking me to predict some of the free agent signings. Corbin Burns, Willy Adames, and Max Fried. Again, these are just predictions. This is not me reporting anything. But I'm going to go Burns. I'll say Chicago. I'll go with the Cubs. Willy Adames, I'll go the Los Angeles Dodgers. Max Fried. Oh, boy. I also want to say the Dodgers for that one, too. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. All right, I'll go with Fried. I'll go with the Dodgers as well. I'll predict both Adames and Fried to the Dodgers right now. I think those both make a lot of sense.
I also want to go with Fried to the Dodgers, but yeah, you're lucky you got one in there, because we didn't plan to predict free agent stuff on this show, certainly, and we don't really do a lot of free agent predictions in general without more data to work off of. We'll do plenty when the offseason arrives, but we do appreciate checking in ahead of time, especially as we're looking to diagnose what is wrong with the current American League playoff field. Look, I'm going to throw the Baltimore Orioles out here as well, because I'm not sure what exactly is missing, but it does feel eerily like the Orioles and Yankees both went south at the exact same time this July. When one would heat up, so would the other. When one would go cold, so would the other. So nobody could distance themselves. You'd get these little 1-game leads in the division, then the other team would get a 1-game lead. There was just really no modicum of consistency. But the Yankees and Aaron Judge and Anthony Rizzo coming back and Juan Soto and got their pitching in order, Schmidt comes back. Nestor looks better. All of a sudden, the Yankees have this veteran leadership, and they're able to right the ship down the stretch. They have a great September, and now they are 6 games up on the Baltimore Orioles with 6 games remaining. The Orioles, relying on contributions from Jackson Holliday, Kobe Mayo. Don't look at Kobe Mayo's stats. I did earlier, and I blinded myself by accident. They've got the same group of guys, essentially, because they didn't do a lot of maneuvering at the trade deadline. They got Corbin Burns this offseason. They go Trevor Rogers and some Phillies bullpen castoffs at the deadline. And say what you will, a lot of people will say a lot of things. We're not burying the Orioles yet. Remarkable amount of talent in Baltimore, but they went out with a whimper last postseason. No one expected them to. Just a little 2-game wild card sweep with the Texas Rangers coming in and taking it to them. And this year down the stretch, they have really faltered in similar fashion. The offense is just not here right now. So I'm not sure if that's if the lineup's not deep enough or too much Emmanuel Rivera, but I do know this isn't the Orioles team we were promised. And just when it looked like the Yankees were going to choke the East away in July and August and early September when Clay Holmes threw gasoline on a fire, the Orioles just couldn't take it. And then the Yankees kind of went and ran with it while Baltimore stayed in neutral.
Yeah, they absolutely did. And I think you made a really good point in the rundown in saying that the inexperience kind of reared its ugly head for the Orioles. And the same thing kind of happened to them last year. As they had one of the best records in baseball last year during the regular season, and they had an early postseason exit. And this year their inexperience is showing now, and like an early playoff exit doesn't necessarily I don't know. They're just not trending in the right direction right now. I think that's a very safe way of putting it. And I think one of their biggest offseason priorities needs to be adding some veteran pieces on offense, or just adding like more players that know how to win, because the Orioles have the best young talent in baseball. I don't think that's up for consideration or up for debate. Like, they have the best young talent in baseball. There's still a bunch of it in their minor league system. And getting at bats for some of these veterans is going to be tough, but they gotta add some sort of veteran pieces to show these guys how to win and to help them or help guide them into the postseason. Because I think that's one of their sneaky, really big needs. I mentioned it last year, and they really didn't necessarily do that. But I think that could be one of the real keys for them this offseason, and something that they should seriously consider. Because if it happens in back-to-back years where inexperience kind of like rears its ugly head at the wrong time, then I think that forces Mike Elias and that front office to act.
Yeah,
and then also like their pitching staff remains. They have a lot of question marks there as well, obviously.
Yeah, you don't want to lose Bradish and Grayson Rodriguez. That throws your plans off significantly. But the depth was not there. They lost an inordinate amount of pitchers to Tommy John and other ailments this year. Completely understood. But yeah, I would agree that they probably should have traded for Dylan Cease, or at least with all of these chipped to cash in. After you see what happens to you in the first half, your trade deadline addition in the rotation cannot be Rogers and Zach Eflin. Like, Eflin's a good stabilizer, and then go high upside, instead of reclamation project with the second edition. Rogers, I think all of us saw this coming, and Connor Norby, of course, 7 bombs with the Miami Marlins, looks like a pretty good ball player. So just saying. But again, the story of the 2024 Orioles is not written. Baltimore fans, if you're angry about this portrayal of not going far enough, then go out and win the wild card series. Beat Tarek Skubal and the Tigers, or the Royals, or the Twins, or God forbid the Boston Red Sox. Beat whoever you got to beat. Get to the DS. Try to make a statement against the number 1 seed. Still have a chance, and you have all the talent in the world. But I have not been impressed with the way the last couple of months have played out.
No, me neither. Like, not at all. It's been just disappointing. It's been underwhelming. It's been a lot of those different adjectives. And we're also seeing the news now that the Detroit Tigers are calling up Jackson Jobe, the best pitching prospect in baseball. Like, that is a huge addition for the Tigers here. They're going to be designating Shelby Miller for assignment. I don't know if that is out there yet, but that is one thing I can report. Jobe is expected to join the Tigers as bullpen, from what I am told. And that is a huge addition to a Tigers team that is surging right now. So that's, the arrow continues to point up for the Detroit Tigers. And who necessarily could have seen that coming? Not me. I don't think anybody, but that is the news we can report on the Baseball Insiders here.
Yeah, that is exciting, and it's wild that it's just for the final 6 games of the regular season. I guess they wanted that's a pretty good reinforcement down the stretch. That top of the draft, generationally wild to look back at. Henry Davis in the number 1 spot, Jack Leiter, Job. Everybody laughed at them for passing on Marcelo Meyer for Job, but now Job is pretty good in his own right. Meyer seems to be a great prospect. I mean, look, it's you don't draft for need, but I don't think the Tigers are upset that they have Jackson Job. And I think the Red Sox are happy with what they got too. But I mean, the 3-4 in that draft could end up being the 1-2 long term.
Oh, absolutely, it did. And like I remember, even in that moment, there was a lot of skepticism about the Pirates taking Henry Davis at number 1 overall. Like there was other players that were more highly rated across baseball, but went with Davis, and that kind of looks like a big swing and a miss there. And they passed on some very, very, very talented players. If they would have gone with any of the other players that we listed here, we're talking Pirates being in an even better spot. You imagine that rotation long term with having Paul Skeens, Jared Jones, Jackson Job, and then also having Mitch Keller. I mean, we're talking. I mean, that's generational. We're talking. That's probably as good as that Nationals trio that they had, where we're talking. What was it? Scherzer, Strasburg. There's another one I'm forgetting here.
They had Anibal Sanchez for a while. George
Zimmerman.
Yeah.
I mean, they had a bunch of these different guys. We're talking, it would be one of the best young cores in baseball history in terms of pitching prospects. But I mean, it's still really good, but it could have been better. But
yeah,
what are you going to do?
See what Bubba Chandler is. But the Pittsburgh Pirates, unfortunately, not going to be on the list of anybody's favorite upcoming series of the week. Before we get into the final stretch of the Major League Baseball season, got to check in on your favorite upcoming series of this ultimate. It's the end. This is the end. We got 2 more stats left for every team. And what's your favorite upcoming series with the standings still yet to be determined? It's got to be the Mets Braves for 3 in Atlanta, right? I'll also say the Mets. I was at Mets Phillies on Saturday, electric atmosphere. That Mets program had the schedule in the back, and they have only 2 Braves games on the schedule for this week. And I was like, is that true? I thought that was a 3-game series. Wishful thinking by the Mets. It is a 3-game series. The Mets are going down to Atlanta, up 2 with 3 to play in Atlanta. Previous Mets DNA would tell you they're in real trouble, but the Mets fans believe that this is different this time around. The Mets team looks like it believes this is different this time around. So for me, that prove it series in Atlanta with the Braves still with a chance to steal a playoff spot, that is the ultimate. I'm not sleeping on Tigers Rays either. I saw the Rays get themselves back to 500. I know the Tigers are playing for everything. The Rays aren't eliminated yet, but I mean, all due respect. I mean, Padres, Dodgers, it's probably got to be Mets Braves.
Yeah, it's Mets Braves for me too. I think that's a really, really, really good one. Like, I mean, that could determine everything there. I will also say the Padres is last week here with you have the Los Angeles Dodgers, and then they're playing the Diamondbacks, and that Diamondback series can end up being a real key here for them. So there's a lot of intriguing series here for baseball, and I think overall, I think these ones that we just mentioned are going to be the biggest ones to watch here by a good amount. And the team that scares, if I was facing the Padres early in the postseason or any time in the postseason, they would scare me because they've been arguably the best team in baseball since the All-Star break. They're just firing on all cylinders. Mike Schultz got them rolling. So they've proven that they can beat anybody. And now they got the Dodgers, who have a lot of question marks, and then the Diamondbacks. And then after that, postseason's going to be here. We'll see what happens. But I am absolutely fascinated by the Padres here. Andrew, I know you've been begging us to talk about the Padres, and we do every show just for you. But for a good reason. They are just a dominant force right now.
We are going to have to talk about them, I believe, deep into October. I'm not going to be declarative just yet. I got to see how the bracket shakes out, but I feel good about where the Padres are headed. I don't think Dodgers fans are confident at all seeing the bracket the way it is lined up right now with the Padres and Diamondbacks fighting it out for the right to face the Los Angeles Dodgers in a best 3 out of 5. I would not be happy if I were a Dodgers fan seeing that. I certainly wouldn't feel comfortable based on the way I just played the Rockies. Bailed out by Shohei and Mookie Betts yesterday. That's great, but Yamamoto a little shaky. Bobby Miller not a major league pitcher right now. Tyler Glass now not coming back. And flew to Tijuana after the season ended. I don't know. I don't feel wonderful if I'm the Los Angeles Dodgers, and the Padres licking their lips for good reason. You wonder how much they're going to want to give away this week. Like, how many tricks do we want to take out of the bag? We might play this team again in a week.
Oh, absolutely. It's a very real thing. And the Dodgers, as I mentioned on the last show, to me, they're the most unpredictable team in this postseason because they have the talent that, especially on offense, that can get them to the World Series no problem. Like, they are just an absolute juggernaut offensively. But pitching, with all the concerns and questions that they have there, it could lead to a very early postseason exit. And that could lead to some very interesting questions in Los Angeles. But I mean, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but they're they're a boomer bust team in the postseason. If they're a bust, oh man, the Twitter is going to be a field day, or X or whatever we call it these days is going to be a field day. Although that being said, seeing Shohei Ohtani make a deep postseason run would be a really cool thing. Like, baseball's been missing that, and now we have a very legitimate chance of it happening. I think that'd be really cool to see, like a generational player, like a once in a lifetime player on baseball's biggest stage. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, underrated that he clinched his first postseason berth of his career this past week. Like, in that 50-50 madness, I think we all lost. Like, of course the Dodgers clinched a playoff spot, but oh, wait a second, Shohei Ohtani has never been here before. So if the one thing, look, hate the Dodgers all you want. They're villains for a reason. Their payroll is $1 quadrillion. They got everybody to defer money, etc. But anyone who's like, oh, MLB accounts are mentioning Shohei Ohtani too much. Why do they talk about him? Because he's insanely good. I think that's
he's once in a lifetime. We're never going to see another player like Shohei Ohtani. Or we're going to see a lot of people like be compared to Ohtani, like as we're going to see more and more two-way players, but there's only one Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah.
And it's fun to see. And like Andrew, I see, like, no, it wouldn't, like you're saying, it wouldn't be fun to see Ohtani in the postseason. Like, I know you're a Padres fan. I get that, but Ohtani in the postseason is just good for baseball. It's good for everybody. Yeah. Not good for the team that he's playing. I will say that, but we gotta appreciate greatness here, because we'll never see this again. Like, I don't say that lightly either, because one thing I try not to do on this show or as a life and as a whole, I try not to be like too much into the hyperbole game, but Ohtani is he's one of one. He's special, and it's cool being able to watch this.
Yeah, never seen anything like it. Don't anticipate seeing anything like it ever again. One more right before we sign off. Just watching the Mets over the weekend. Obviously, this is a showcase series for them, but their final home game of the regular season was last night on Sunday Night Baseball. You got the Mets fans giving Pete Alonso ovations in every at-bat he took, saying goodbye while they still had the chance. Of course, they hope there's a playoff run. They hope they see him for the duration of October, but they know as a lower seeded team, if they don't get out of the first round, that might be it at Citi Field for Alonso as a Met. So what do they know? I mean, they know they're being careful. They know they need to show him love right now. With all this love for Luisangel Acuña, who's played the last couple days, I feel like those are sort of the dueling Mets points. Acuna taking over for Lindor. He does look amazing. I don't know if they dare carry him on the playoff roster, and obviously, hopefully you get Lindor back as soon as you can. But he looks amazing, and I think he could be an October X factor. But the Alonso thing, I guess just speak on it a little bit. Any teams, any early scuttlebutt you're potentially hearing about Alonso, and maybe there's a reason why Met fans are giving him that send-off a little bit early.
Yeah, I'll start with Acuna here. I don't have a good feel for what the Mets would do if they did make the postseason, if he would end up being on the postseason roster by any means. But his play and how well he's performing and what he's played 9 games so far with the Mets, I think that would warrant like some consideration for them. He's just been a real bright spot for them. And like when Lindor went down with that injury, it was immediate concern for obvious reasons. We're talking like a top MVP candidate in the National League here. But he's done a really good job of holding on the fort. And if Lindor isn't ready, then I think having Acuna there on the postseason roster would make plenty of sense for them. As far as Pete Alonso goes, I think Mets fans just understand like this could be the last time one of the last times that they see him in a Mets uniform in New York, because he's a free agent at the end of the year. And as we know with free agency, like there are no promises, there are no guarantees whatsoever. And it's just, I don't know. There's a lot of questions here because we saw what ended up happening at the deadline. There was people wondering if the Mets would trade him. The Mets in the offseason were adamant about not trading him. Then that scuttlebutt was kind of being floated around here and there during the season. Obviously, they kept him. But if he ends up reaching free agency, and he is a Scott Boras client, so you can imagine he will be hitting free agency. I fully expect the Mets to remain contenders for his services, but I also think, this is just my own speculation, that a team like the Giants, teams like the Cubs, even the Mariners could all make a lot of sense there. And like I see people even floating here about the Padres being a potential fit for Alonso. We'll see there. We'll see exactly how much money that AJ probably has to spend in the offseason, because that was kind of something that they had in the back of their minds in the offseason, or even like middle of the season here. Like that was a very real thing in San Diego. But that will not be a cheap contract, so we'll see. But those are the teams that I'm looking at right now for Alonso.
I am excited to see the offseason arrive, of course. But first, we have a very determinative week of regular season baseball, followed by a week of wild card series, a Friday off, and then the DS begins 1 week from Saturday. Weird that there's a Friday off, but I do have a wedding to attend on Friday night. So fans of the Baseball Insiders know that I have weddings literally constantly, and I love them. They're great. But shout out to Rob Manfred. You finally put together a postseason schedule that allows me to attend my friend's wedding and also watch all the baseball playoffs that I could ever desire. We are psyched. We will see you back here on Thursday, 3:30 Eastern, same time, to wrap up the series that are beginning today, or keep in touch with the ones that begin on Tuesday. See where we're at ahead of a pivotal final weekend of regular season action, and then it is time for a playoff preview next Monday. Robert Murray, thank you for joining me. As always, good stuff. Apologies to David Bell, but maybe we'll have you on as a Baseball Insiders guest now that you got some free time. Thank you for joining me.
No, hey, thank you for having me. Maybe we'll see what we can do about D Bell and having him on here. But yeah, you're the man. I appreciate you. Everyone who tuned in and watched the show today, we appreciate you. And we'll see everybody back here on Thursday.
Take care, y'all. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, everybody.